6:30. May I have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Barkley? Here. Commissioner Weinberger?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Braden is absent. Commissioner Harlow?
Here.
Commissioner Prisby?
Here.
And Chairman Bonin is absent.
Right. Tonight, unfortunately, Chairman Bonin is absent, and the commission requires a temporary chairman for this meeting. Is the commissioner willing to make a motion to appoint me as the chairman pro tem for tonight?
I move to appoint Jim Prisby as Chairman Pro Tem for the June 1st, 2022 Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
Do we have a
Second.
Okay. May we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Harlow?
Aye.
Chairman Prisby?
Aye. I get to vote for myself?
I think you do.
All right, the next order of business is approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes for April 6th, 2022?
I do not have any.
Anybody, anyone?
No, all good.
All right, do we have a motion for the meeting minutes for April 6th, 2022?
I move to approve the Historic Preservation Commission minutes of Wednesday, April 6, 2022.
Second.
All right, may we have a voice vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, on to the good stuff. The next item on the agenda is the findings and recommendations for the application for local landmark designation for the Bagley House at 121 South County Line Road, which was reviewed at the public hearing on April 6th, 2022. That should all be in your packet. Are there any comments or corrections to the findings and recommendations? Anybody, anyone?
No.
Just cranking through this?
Yeah,
Yep,
we're moving
yep.
along.
Okay, are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this matter tonight? Don't all jump up at once. All right, so, we want to get this to the Board of Trustees.
Jim.
We have a comment section after your meeting. I don't hear a full review.
There will be for new business later on, and public comments.
Can I speak on the Bagley House?
Sure,
Can I do that now?
Yeah?
go ahead,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's what it's here for.
No?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. It's been a long time since I've been in this meeting. My name is Bob Lennox, Lennox. I live at 503 Chanticleer Lane, formerly at 123 North Washington. I wanted to come tonight to talk about the Bagley House, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright and constructed in 1894. You all know that, don't you? Have any of you ever lived in a Frank Lloyd Wright house?
No.
Let me give you a little background, okay? I was born and raised in Oak Park. My parents had moved to Oak Park from Detroit in 1945, and in 1950, they purchased a house at 223 North Euclid. That house today is known as the George Furbeck House. It was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. Remember, he designed houses, he did not build them, okay? He, along with the owners, would hire a contractor and they would build the house. And sometimes Mr. Wright would build houses, let's say, beyond the capabilities of his contractors. I suspect my father's house was one of those houses, okay? I noticed in the write-up of the Bagley House, there seemed to be an interest in the library off the Bagley House. I've been in the Bagley House a number of times. We knew Jerry and Jeanette Goldstone pretty well. Being a Frank Lloyd Wright fan, I started going to the Wright Plus tours. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
Yeah, I'm one of them guys.
They're put on by the foundation in Oak Park. And every year, they open 8 or 9 select houses, and my father's house has been on this tour. So we've gotten to know the owners of this house over the year. So in 2019, I got a message from the foundation that the Edward Probst House in River Forest was going to be on the tour. Edward Probst designed the house that I used to live in here in Hinsdale, which is now gone, okay? Like many houses in Hinsdale. They become functionally obsolete. So I got involved with the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, and this year they drafted me into being the research captain for the David and Carolyn Kennedy House in Oak Park, which was on this year's Wright Tour. This house was built in 1888. The only reason I'm mentioning all this is because the house you're looking at, 1894, my parents' house was built in 1897, the Kennedy house was built in 1888. These houses are very, very difficult to maintain and keep up, okay? The people who own the Kennedy house that I had the pleasure to work with on this project had spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars into keeping an 1888 huge Queen Anne in good shape. And most of the people in Oak Park who live in these houses, you know, it's a hobby with them. So I got involved with this, and one of the other reasons I got involved was to find out what, if any, support the Village of Oak Park gave the foundation and/or this tour. And what I found out, interestingly enough, is the Village of Oak Park has no financial involvement with the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation or the Frank Lloyd Wright Home Tour, called Wright Plus. And so I'm hoping that the Village of Hinsdale does not become involved in the Bagley House financially. I know you're thinking about giving it landmark status. Some of the houses on the Wright Tour have landmark status. Most do not, interestingly enough. Even though they're Frank Lloyd Wright design houses and sometimes very good houses, very few people have sought landmark status. That doesn't mean it's not interesting, but I think you have to be cautious about that. In addition, I also saw the historic district up here. Of course, the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, the home and studio, if you're familiar with that, and most of the houses on the tour are in the historic district of Oak Park. And there is a historic association in Oak Park. And I spent a number of afternoons in the Oak Park River Forest Historic Library, really. And they had a fantastic collection and specific file on the house I was working on, so it was very interesting. So I would ask you to think very carefully about any kind of financial involvement with the Bagley House. As my father learned when he went to change a light bulb in the kitchen, the entire ceiling fell down. Wright houses are interesting to look at, and certainly Jerry and Jeanette's house was beautiful to look into. But even they put a lot of money into the house. They tore off the back of the house, they put in a pool, et cetera, et cetera. You know all that. I'm assuming you toured the house at one time or another. At this point, I don't know what's happening with the house, and I'm entrusting the Historic Commission to find out what's going on with the house, because the lawn hasn't been mowed in a couple of weeks. But the fact of the matter is, I'm hoping that the Village of Hinsdale, like the Village of Oak Park, does not get involved with the restoration or in any financial way with the Bagley House. Now, the end of the story is, of course, my parents lived in this house until 1963, when I was a teenager. At that point, they sold the house. It was difficult to sell the house, okay? And I always thought that Mr. King, Dr. King, I should say, originated this phrase. Well, it was actually my father, because on the night that he found out that the house was sold, he fell down on his knees in front of the fireplace and said, free at last, thank God I'm free at last. So with that, I'll let you guys decide on what you want to do with the Bagley House. But I'm here to ask you that the village not be involved financially with this property and not use taxpayer money on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we got lucky that we have Lucas and Safina associated with this project.
Yeah, I don't think we've heard anything like that.
No, I don't think we have either.
We have,
This will, yes. Bethany?
And it's hoped that this, with these findings signed, that it will go to the next board meeting on June 14th, which will be in this room at 7 o'clock.
Anyone else tonight regarding this house? Okay, at that point, I think we close the public comments. Anybody want to deliberate on that at all? Any other additional comments?
well, the only thing, I haven't heard anything about that, the village financially, but then again, have you heard anything like that?
So the only thing that we've been talking globally about is the historic overlay district and that financial component, which is completely separate from the Bagley House. So that's not something that's being considered as part of this for the landmark designation. There's a possibility that they could be put on that list in the future, but there's a long way to go to see if that program is going to be adopted by the village board down the road.
Can I
Sure.
Do you mind going up to the podium, though?
I'm sorry, can you step to the microphone, otherwise they can't hear you on TV? Thank you.
Is there any financial involvement with the village at this point? Has the village granted any money or, I mean, I don't mind if you do
Anthony?
easements or historical designations, that's up to you
No, I
guys,
don't
but-
No.
think so. No,
Not
not
that
that
we're
we're
aware of.
aware, no.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so with that, do we have a motion for the findings and recommendations for the Bagley House?
I move to approve the final recommendations for the Bagley House to become another village landmark, which is very exciting.
Second.
Was that a second by?
Oh, I'm sorry, I second.
Sorry, some of the microphones are a little weird tonight.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Weinberger and a second by Commissioner Barkley. As submitted, may we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Barkley?
Aye.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Harlow?
Aye.
Commissioner Prisby?
Aye. Motion carries.
Yay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll try to make it at that meeting for the Board of Trustees. Hope to get a chance to talk to you. All right, on to sign permit review. So the next item we have is case A 09-2022, 14 West Hinsdale Avenue for Every Day's a Sunday, the installation of one wall sign. Is the applicant present at the meeting tonight? Would the applicant please come to the podium and provide a brief overview of the proposed signage?
Hi,
Please state your
everyone.
name for the record.
Like I say, I'm Robert Whalen. I'm one of the owners of Every Day's a Sunday, 14 West Hinsdale.
Okay.
Every child in town is very excited.
Not as excited as I am. We're excited to get it going.
Well, you
so
have
this
Blue
is a
Moon.
Important step.
Blue Moon.
What, Blue Moon? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we got Blue Moon. We'll see it all over the sidewalk. We'll clean it up, don't worry.
You want us to tell us a little bit about the signage?
Yeah, I got actually my sign guy here, Corey. He wanted to kind of give you the particulars of it. I know it's going to look nice if you guys have been by the Downers Grove store. It's similar to that, but let him give you the details.
Hello, I'm Corey with IC Signs. We're the fabricator and the installer. So the sign's going to be basically a shoebox cabinet with a push-through style acrylic, which pushes through the face about a ½ inch, and then it's edge lit at nighttime. And it's standard white face with a white LED.
Questions, comments?
There's some examples in the packet there to show the example of how that sign lights up. It's pretty straightforward design. The logo's not too complicated.
I have to tell you, I really enjoyed the nighttime photo that was essentially the sign in a black box. It's a really dark night.
It lights up white.
I at least saw that, it made me chuckle.
So the awning is staying. That's right below the sign.
Correct. The awning that is there is staying, yes.
The one picture does not have the gooseneck lighting on it above that limestone band course, but the other one does. What's there now? So there's two. There's this other photo.
Yeah, the lights are still there. We're gonna take the light bulbs out of them, so we won't have the extra.
So my question regarding that was, you only have this section of the building. What about the lights over here on the other side? Are those going to remain on, or are they all going to go off?
That I'm not sure about, because there's another, on 16 West Hinsdale, there's another business going there. It's the, I believe it's the Cabinet Store, so I don't know where they're at with their sign, or if they're gonna put a sign up there, or what
Right.
you know, what their
And
plans
if they're
are.
going to use that lighting.
Yeah, right.
And I'm just wondering if we have this strip of gooseneck lighting on the building that is essentially symmetrical over the center of the building, and then we only have half the lights with
Yeah.
bulbs in them.
Looks like
I
the
think that's
bulbs are
gonna look
out.
a little hokey.
Sure.
I'd almost rather, if the cabinet sign gets approved, let's say, and that has its own lighting, to have the gooseneck lighting up there with nothing in it seems a little a little off, that we ought to consider having it at least removed at that point,
Yeah, I don't,
if it's not being used.
well,
Yeah,
yeah,
we could easily move the goosenecks, that would be not a problem,
but the
clean up that space.
goosenecks running all the way across.
Yeah, I mean, run across all the way across the guaranteed rate sign as well.
So if guaranteed rate is, if that sign is staying, the goosenecks could come off, but the conduit would still be there?
No, you would want to remove the conduit.
You'd want to have to, you'd have to take that out.
Well, the conduit could be removed and tapped off at the building.
Wondering how easily that is tapped into, if you have a segment missing, if it's running across there now, where we're tapping into. Is guaranteed rate still there?
They are.
And
And then,
that,
just as a reminder, the adjacent tenant space that's to the right of this one, that was Silver Birch, which came before you guys a couple months ago.
Right.
That was a non-illuminated sign, black and white as well, I believe, so.
It helps to see the whole building. Is there any way that the sign could be not illuminated, but you could use the gooseneck lighting, the existing gooseneck lighting? In a way? We've had a number, any business that comes before us, generally, we're not a fan of illuminated signs, especially along the street facing the train station.
There's no face illumination, it's all edge lit, so it's like a backlit sign, basically, so there's no face lighting it, like, in your eyes that way. It lights up from the edges.
didn't we also have an issue with the Zazo sign,
Zazu?
Yeah.
yeah, 2 months ago? With the, with it being a cabinet sign.
Correct.
We're not a big fan of those typically.
So this is a very similar sign to what Zazu had originally
Right.
proposed, where it was kind of that push-through sign where it's not a true cabinet sign where it's completely flat.
Right.
But there is some relief here, but it is very similar to what they proposed. That ultimately, they ended up doing individual letters, or one cutout.
Okay.
That was
Without
approved
any,
by the plan commission afterwards.
without any illumination.
I think it was individually lit, and the plan
Individual.
commission was okay with that because they switched it from the pan sign that you guys saw from before.
Right.
Okay.
Can the goosenecks not stay on? Does that mess with the lighting? Like if you keep those bulbs in there, what is the downside of that?
You're having two lights compete against each other,
Okay,
basically.
that's-
Yeah, what is it? Birdie? Is that what you guys were just talking about, Birdie?
No, Zazu,
Zazu.
the hair salon in between you and Birdie.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, because Birdie's the one, the backlit sign, individual letters.
Yeah, I'm trying.
That's what Zazu is.
Wish I could see that one.
I do appreciate the fact that you were able to squeeze this in between the 2 layers of limestone. And
And it's
it's
centered.
where it should be going. I'm just wondering if there are other options here. I mean, I look at this building, and essentially all the signage on the building that I can see here is all being handled with the goosenecks. And I'm thinking about the consistency of the whole elevation. I'm just wondering if that should remain consistent.
Is the guaranteed rate sign lit itself? Because it looks like it's a box.
Sure looks
It
like
says
it is.
lit with goosenecks on
I think it,
this page.
Bethany, do you know, is the guaranteed rate sign illuminated in and of itself, or is it just the goosenecks?
That was before my time, but I assume it is
Flipping.
non-illuminated.
I believe it is
Just because the-
non-illuminated.
I'm pretty
It
sure it is.
says
I'm
lit with goosenecks
pretty sure
on
it
here.
came to us.
It did, right,
Yeah.
it was in front of us. I just can't remember if it was
What the-
illuminated on its
Yeah,
own.
I can't
or
read,
just
it
the
looks like a
gooseneck.
box, that's all.
Yeah. The other thing I would point out is that this business in particular is going to do a lot of night business. Post-baseball games, post-soccer games. They will be open, what are the hours you're anticipating?
At least 9 o'clock, possibly 10 during the summer, you know, we'll keep it, you know, as long as there's
So,
people
I
out
mean, this
there.
is more of a nighttime business than guaranteed rate, and maybe the cabinet shop. So that is something I would consider.
Keith, I noticed like driving down there, I know Birdie's got a nice, his storefront's great because it gives some light to that street. Street seems kind of dark if you drive it at night, so hopefully we can have something like kind of bring a little color to, bring a little light to it. I just happened to notice that when I was driving down there. I saw that Birdie's got a nice storefront. I like his design as well. It's nice. And then a landlord for our owner of the building, he's got several tenants in there. He liked our ideas. He owns the Casa Margarita down the street, so, understands kind of what we are looking to do.
Is there any chance of doing this with just individual letters as opposed to the box?
The access behind the wall is not there to be able to do the individual wiring.
What if it was, these letters were mounted to a thinner box that would allow you to put the wiring behind it?
That's
So
what
it-
that is,
How deep is this box?
2 inches,
And the letters are proud of that, how far?
½ inch.
Half inch?
You're not building a fabricated letter, you're cutting the letter out of a piece of acrylic, 1.5 inches thick, and you're cutting the metal out and you're pushing that through. So your letter is sticking ½ inch past the face, and that's what lights up on the edge.
Okay. And the edge of the letter is also the acrylic?
Correct,
So it doesn't have like a black edge to it?
correct. It's clear acrylic. And we use white LED, and that gives you the white illumination around the edges, which gives you the same effect as the Birdie sign, but actually a little bit more classy and not as bright. Not as bright like shining around the letters of light.
I don't have a problem with the sign at all. It's great. I would just see it as, every time I drive by, I would think that the village needs to change its light bulbs. Like or the landlord needs to change the light bulbs. Like their lights out. Like that's what I would think every
Well,
time.
yeah, I mean, I think
But-
taking down the goosenecks is definitely the way to go, just to clean up the area there.
Is there a problem keeping the goosenecks and using those?
Well, that's what I asked
That's-
him, and he
yeah.
said it's,
I mean,
What
if you had
put,
2 light sources, that messes
Yeah,
with
that's
your
gonna be a
sign.
conflict, you're gonna have a conflict of different
Right.
light hitting there, and it's gonna have bad shadows, bad everything else.
I have a problem removing the goosenecks. If you've got them over guaranteed rate and the cabinets.
right.
door.
And that was
Yeah.
when I was saying that it looks like it spans the whole building.
I mean, the one thing nice about the goosenecks is if you are out at night with your kids, once you've gotten your ice cream, is then it's not that, I mean, you do have a lamppost, but it's not as dark out there. Those goosenecks would provide some outside ambient light,
And there will be a lot of kids
yes.
out on that street at night.
Gonna be busy.
Oh,
Oh, there
no
will be.
friends.
There will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the gooseneck piece of it. Especially if you pull up the full building, the facade of the entire actual building.
Does it continue across to the right?
Oh, I
Can't see.
And it's very symmetrical. So you've got the awning and then
Right.
over, and it's very
Yeah.
symmetrical.
But the
Hopefully,
part
so
on
we
the
got
left
permits on
side
Friday,
of the
so
building,
the
it's in
building
this
permit on
picture,
Friday, so we
is
just
not
have to
symmetrical.
Do some plumbing,
No.
Right, so you have
electric,
the
and then
lights over the guaranteed rate
hopefully-
sign.
Hopefully by
Right?
July.
So it's only
should be great.
symmetrical from
Will you be open by
this
July 4th?
point this way.
By July 4th?
And then this is kind of added
I
to
hope
the
so.
end.
Yeah, kind of.
Correct.
I hope so.
But also the whole
Thing
architecture.
in place for like 2 years now, 3 years.
We couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
We
It doesn't
kind
have
of
an
just happened
awning.
upon the space. We looked at a different spot, and he's got the one in Downers, so came here and said, wait, we're missing something. That's good. We're excited.
Oh,
Yeah.
So you were suggesting around your signage to eliminate the goosenecks, is that it? Yeah, no, I know, I heard that, I just want,
I think they were
yeah, but
talking about eliminating the bulbs, but
You were
leaving
gonna
the
eliminate
actual
the-
goosenecks.
you could, yeah, you can eliminate the bulbs.
That's what they were suggesting.
Oh,
That's
I
fine.
just think
That's
it looks funny
fine.
without the
Happy.
bulbs in there.
okay.
And they're also, correct me if I'm wrong, arguing that, the double light, one coming from the
No,
cabinet
that's right,
itself.
yeah, that sounds clear, that you're gonna have a conflict, could be warm incandescent or something, or LED, and then versus something brighter, and it's just gonna,
And sometimes you can go back and suggest that they just make the goosenecks all kind of decorative, low light, just looks good, except that the shop next door just came before us, and they're actually using that as their primary light source.
Yeah, we're a little bit of a
And you don't
pickle.
want two different types of light at that point. Sarah's point, you want that to be consistent,
Yeah.
like have them all on. So do you consider the goosenecks an architectural feature? That you could leave the goosenecks there, just with no bulbs in them, just to have the architectural aspect to it? And remember, John has been here
Yeah.
arguing for certain things in this town to come down that have been left up after shop owners have left. I think it was the frame shop had a banner up and a bracket that just hung there for years, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if this falls into that category.
Well, does his sign, is it allowed to stay on all night? When does it go off?
Timing?
Yeah, never?
Is there,
So the Plan Commission, and we have some lighting standards as well, generally will require like any illuminated lights like this to be turned off by 10. The
Well,
code
then
also suggests that.
Does that
you
include
turn
the
on the
goosenecks too? The gooseneck lighting?
I believe the way the code reads is for lighting for signage, so it could be for the gooseneck as well.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, because if
On.
if they come off.
I don't know if they've
and-
done that with the
Yeah, you don't,
gooseneck before.
okay, because then it's
Do
gonna
the
be,
goosenecks come on when you go off?
no, I don't, that's not, I think, may not, they go off at 10.
The goosenecks go off too.
That's what she's saying, yeah.
Because the ones on the right will be illuminating the sign.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
We having fun yet?
Oh, yeah, it's really a good time here. What am I gonna do?
I like to make easy things really difficult.
I think we generally approve the goosenecks, so I'm not sure we would suggest those going down.
But what about removing just the bulbs in that area?
Or are you back to, we have a standard of no cabinet lights. We've approved many things with gooseneck lighting.
That's where I'm going.
I like the location, I like the size, I like the way it looks. But again, we've had issues with the cabinet interior lighting. And several times we have, or maybe more than several times, really encouraged the gooseneck lighting for these
Yes.
signs.
Yes.
Anything else, Bill?
It's a square, round hole. Yeah, I think that would probably given the precedent that that's the way we need to go.
Just because we all like ice cream.
Yeah, it's gonna melt. Look at that.
It is gonna, it's gonna be on a sidewalk.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Especially because we just had this before us at the last meeting.
I wonder, and not that you would have an answer, but I wonder what's the condition of these goosenecks, how long they've been there, and
Good
have they
question.
been maintained properly?
Good question. Didn't look that old in the picture.
No.
Could you think of a way that
Right over there.
the sign, you could come up with a design of a sign that would work using gooseneck lighting? Or is that just not what you as an owner of a business is going for?
I kind of like, what Corey presented. I know that, we looked at some options that he had sent us, and that's kind of where we want to keep it kind of consistent with the Downers Grove. I know it's a different town, but it's kind of you kind of see it as the centerpiece there, and it's kind of, we're kind of looking to kind of have the same feel. Not that you can't get that with that lighting, but it's just something, the way he presented the sign to us, it looks kind of what we envisioned.
We actually just had a similar conversation 2 months ago with the Zazu sign, was that they have the same sign as a theme, as a corporate kind of look.
Sure.
They do the same thing everywhere. And we even talked at that meeting about the fact that We understand that, but in a historic district, there's some standards that we have to hold to, and other companies have made certain concessions to their signage to make it fit in that neighborhood. And so I completely appreciate wanting to do what was in Downers Grove. I kind of have to look at it with blinders on for this district. Is there anyone here in the public that would like to say anything regarding this? Clearly not.
You hear crickets.
So, based on what we've discussed, any more comments? Do we have a motion?
I move to, I think the word would be deny. Case A 09/2022, every day's a Sunday, installation of one wall sign.
I have a question now.
Go ahead.
Um,
Can he ask a question after?
Yeah, it's a question, and it's a thought, and I don't know if it's possible. What if somehow you're able to design the same letter style onto the awning somehow? And do a design that it basically you have the same idea, but it's on the awning itself. There is some illumination and all that.
Is
Those
it?
goosenecks aren't set up right now to illuminate that awning.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
No, I know that, right, I get it, I'm just
So if
trying.
you change that, then you're changing the whole frontage as well.
So we also, you don't have
Right.
over there.
And that awning's in no condition.
Well,
So
I
the
don't-
sign as is, it works well. I mean, this isn't the existing sign, but works well.
Yeah,
I mean, the sign they have.
I don't know, I'm just trying to think
Yeah.
outside the box, that's all.
Yeah,
So what if you do aesthetically the same sign that you're proposing, but you eliminate the illumination and you stick with just the goosenecks to eliminate it?
It just depends, I mean, you know, how we can, is that gonna be, we kinda want to have that as much, where it's still gonna look good, have as much of a presence, you know, as you can. You know, even like, kinda like where you can see like the birdie sign, if we can kinda get that same light in the backlight. I think it's at nighttime, just based on that street, when you drive down it, to have a light, you know, we're open for business, it really, I think it makes a difference, you know, driving, people on a train can see it, you know, at certain times if they're coming back from the city or whatever. I think it's, in my opinion, it's good to have that, the backlit sign is gonna really attract people to, you know, new business more so.
Is there any way to play with the lighting of the sign so that you can have gooseneck lighting too, and it doesn't cause this kind of,
You're gonna get shadows, you're gonna get all kinds of different things. I mean, you're gonna have another light shining on top of something else that's shining as an edge. It's not gonna be conflicted. You're gonna hate it if it was said, yes, you're gonna hate it, and I wouldn't do it. Yeah, you know, that kind of thing. But, you know, like he was saying about the lighting, I mean, you're never gonna get the same aspect of the way that we presented it with the goosenecks lights to get that same appearance of a new business being there and him to get that reflection of somebody, hey, oh, that business is open. The gooseneck lightings they're great for visual, they're great for that historical thing, but they're not good for overall lighting something up like that, especially individual letters or something like that. It's just not gonna get the consistent light that's gonna say, oh, okay, look, he's open, or it's just not gonna look as well, that's for sure, you know.
So I think what we're fishing here for is some sort of solution where we can give you ideas of something that would pass. Is that, I mean, a fair assessment? Because right now the motion is to deny. So we're trying to come up with something that we would approve.
But it seems like the whole LED option altogether is out the window, it seems, is the consensus sort of feel.
unless we say that we're willing to let those light bulbs, take out the light bulbs. I mean, I don't know if we take them out and go by at night and see what it looks like, I don't know. If it looks odd with two lights out, or however many there are, and the rest
Mine-
on. 1, 2, 3, there's 3.
yeah.
about it as like an individual sense. Basically, if those lights weren't there, you know, and a new business came in here and said, I want to put up a non-illuminated sign, I'm going to use the goosenecks, and then so on, the same guy here, and then this guy individually, he wants to put up this sign here that's a backlit, you know, LED sign. That style, you know, going through the landlord and going through them, the landlord being, you know, acceptant to their style on their building as well. You know, it's just another way to look at it as well. They're all individual businesses. They all need individual needs and visual comparison. I mean, like the guaranteed rate, I think they're upstairs, so I mean, that's just a name, and the cabinet shop, you know, at normal hours, you know, the visibility wise for him and his business is gonna be key with a illuminated sign rather than a gooseneck sign, gooseneck lit sign.
We in no way are trying to be obstructionists. We want you to
sure,
succeed,
Yeah, of
but
course.
we also have a
Oh, yeah.
duty to make the town
No.
Of course.
certain.
It sounds like that old building was a post office at one point, is that what it was?
Bethany, this says it's 15 square feet. What are they allowed again?
They're allowed 25
Okay.
maximum, but you can see they're kind of limited,
Yeah.
similar to Silver Birch, who you recently approved. I didn't look up exactly how many, but they were much smaller than the 25 as well, roughly around this.
That awning kind of just
Yeah.
Yeah.
ruins the area at the building, I think, myself. It's not in the greatest condition as it is, I think, but, you know, I think we're gonna possibly rewrap it in the spring or something, or whatever, so.
I don't see a slam dunk answer for this one.
We are advisory.
We are. What you're saying is that makes it somebody else's problem.
No, I'm just saying, we are advisory.
Yeah, they can go on.
See more of the streetscape.
It's essentially the type of light, the type of signage at this point.
It makes
I
it,
like-
it is.
I
And
like
then
the
in-
size, I like the location, I think they've got it
Yeah,
in the
it's
right
a great-
spot.
Yep.
I don't mind that it's lit. You know, it needs lighting, especially as
Yeah,
an
I
ice
don't
cream shop late at night. More so than some of the neighbor businesses that won't be open when those lights are actually on. I just have a problem with the precedents that we've set around town
Yes.
of encouraging gooseneck lighting or even backlighting for some of these halo lights.
That's what this is considered, a backlighting. We just call it edge lit because it's pushed through the face. And the reason that we doing it this way is because the font style on there, if you look at it, he's got tiny little holes in that little thick font aspect. So the size that we're constrained to, we have to do it this way to get that same effect, because we can't fabricate it because it got a tiny little half-inch hole you can't bend the metal to make.
Shannon, I don't know if you saw that, like the little example they've got here. The box is only this deep, and then the letters come out just a little bit farther. And it's anything that's in front of the black box is out, it's all white. So even the sides of the letters have that lighting. So it's not like the J Dragon cabinet sign, where it's just a piece of like plexiglass with painting on it.
Correct.
It's all just a bunch of bulbs behind it.
Correct.
I don't know if that changes your perception of that at all.
And we could make it, I could go about 1.5 inches less because I need to put the transformer power supply inside that box because we don't have anywhere to put it externally. And then, I don't know, it's up to you, but, we could also paint that box instead of black, we could paint it a similar brick color to it as well, where it would blend in with the building more.
I actually don't mind it in black.
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, it was
Looks
like
good.
more of a
Looks
contrast, and
good.
that's what we're trying to achieve
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Do you have a, Shannon, and everyone else, do you have a problem with the letter style being this half-inch projection with the sides also in the white acrylic? There have been other signs that have gone up in town where it's been individual letters, like Fuller's Car Wash has individual letters.
Right.
But each letter is its own box, but it has black on the sides. So all you're getting is the face of the letter in the white, in the light.
Well, I think
Would it change your opinion?
what also makes it more complicated are the goosenecks.
Sure it does.
I mean, I'm not sure what the solution is
If this looked
there.
more like a black backing to an applied box cabinet letter, does that change your opinion at all?
Again, it's the gooseneck that adds to the complication.
Right.
I'm not just looking at the sign, I'm looking at the building itself,
Mm-hmm.
which is what our job is, to look at the historic land, the streetscape. And removing the goosenecks, you know, it is not not really an option, because the other two businesses rely on those. The goosenecks make it a little more complicated.
I agree.
I don't know, what if it's individual letters? Would that complicate it more?
Well, to Shannon's point, you know, you've got this consistent row of goosenecks across the face of the building. They're either on or they're off.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to goosenecks on or off, or lighting, their lighting on or off, right? And they can't light with just goosenecks,
Right.
but we can't get rid of the, unless we do turn the bulbs off. I mean, that's my own personal opinion of just thinking that it looks like light bulbs are out, but maybe it wouldn't, maybe it wouldn't.
That's what you're proposing. You're not
They're,
proposing.
yeah, they don't wanna take them off, they just wanna
Right,
take out
right.
the bulbs, right? Turn them off.
I don't think it's gonna affect, I mean, people won't,
People won't think what I think, okay?
no, because then there you'll see
I
some
was
lighting
thought
there, there's a lamp post there that
Yeah.
actually blends into the wall, that confuses, so you got several textures of lights there, in that area. I think removing the bulbs will probably be fine, but that's just my opinion.
Okay.
We have a motion,
Yes, we do.
and
Your motion is to deny
deny
as submitted.
as submitted.
Is there anything that you would revise on that? Based on if they leave the goosenecks in, take the bulbs out, which is, I believe, what they have
Well,
submitted.
that's what they've submitted.
That's submitted. Leave the goosenecks, but take out the bulbs? Okay.
I'm
I don't know the condition of those conduits, you know, and they're exterior conduit and they're probably anchored into the masonry, which is probably cracking the masonry because screws, you know, rust, corrode. So I'm not always in for these goosenecks because they have, you see the electrical box every few feet, you know, on it. That's, to me, that was a quick fix for somebody at one time. So, and for me, I'm not always convinced that they're historical in nature, unless you go back to the cast iron installations, which I have feeling it's not. So,
I think they're newer than that.
yeah, there you go, so.
So are you suggesting removing just their portion?
No, I would just go with just removing the bulbs, that's it.
Okay.
So if there's no second, then the motion dies.
It doesn't carry.
Right.
Correct.
So somebody else can make another motion.
Someone has to second that.
No,
Yeah, if there's no second, the motion would die, and someone can propose a new motion if they'd like.
Okay, well, that's complicated too.
No? If Shannon's alone on that one, and two other people want to make a motion and a second for something else, then she can simply vote against that.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm. See, because you keep saying it's a small, thin sign, right?
Yes.
So,
Is 2 inches off the wall.
right.
This is not some
Yeah,
6 inch deep
it's not
box.
like 2
Right.
inches, 2 inches, it's like this much. Okay?
Right.
So I was absent for the Silver Birch. Can someone remind me of what was approved for that?
It's not illuminated, correct? And it relies on the gooseneck.
It's strictly a flat sign, not illuminated,
That's
relies
what
on,
I recall.
I think Bethany's going to try to.
I'm going to try to find it.
If I remember correctly, it was just a flat panel
Yeah,
that was going to be
Yeah,
kind
I
of in the
think-
same area.
yeah.
because
But
they're
using the
closed at
goosenecks.
like 5, right? I mean,
right.
And then again, it's a business that closes at
Yeah.
I mean, I
5-ish.
think it's similar to what was similar to the Deep Creek. This is.
It's a big document, it's taken a bit to load. I think it was the meeting before this. Okay, I know this is kind of small, so let me see if I can make this a little bigger. So they just had that black and white, and here's kind of what their overview was. The Plan Commission eventually, I believe, if I remember correctly, you guys had recommended to make the sign a little bit smaller because you wanted that brick course to
Correct.
be right above and below. So they did shrink the size a tiny bit, and then they did do some changes to the permanent window signage, which the Plan Commission was okay with their former plan. But they did approve the smaller plan with the brick coursework on the top and bottom.
And it is just a panel applied with the
This is a
gooseneck
metal
letters.
panel,
Right.
from my memory. It was a black acrylic backing with the white acrylic logoing letter. So it was just a panel, not illuminated. And then I did look up guaranteed rate, and it looks like that is also not illuminated.
Okay, so we still have a motion to deny. Anyone care to add a second?
Yeah, okay, well, given that, I'll second.
Okay,
Aye.
we have a motion by Commissioner Weinberger and a second by Commissioner Harlow to deny the application as submitted. May we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Barkley?
Nay.
Nay, as in you are not agreeing.
Correct.
Okay, just want to clarify.
Double negative.
Commissioner Weinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Nay, not agreeing.
Commissioner Harlow?
Aye.
Commissioner
Oh,
Frizzly?
good luck, break the tie, buddy boy.
The tiebreaker.
We had to sit in that seat, didn't we?
Thank you, John, wherever you are. I'm going to have to say aye, only because I have set a long precedent of being on this board, of enjoying the goosenecks and supporting those. But it's a good argument we had here tonight. I think the Plan Commission has a lot of good information to go on for making their decision. They don't always agree with us, and with a split vote, it will certainly make things interesting at Plan Commission. Okay?
It's
Thank you,
no
gentlemen. This was
reflection on your
terrific.
ice cream, and we will be there.
Yes, you'll be your first
Spend
customer.
money.
Please.
Thank you for coming to
She-
town.
Shannon wants her blue moon, right?
Yeah.
To get you the blue moon, don't
Yeah.
worry.
So then this will still go to the next review,
Correct.
and they'll do the final say?
They have the final say.
Yes, we are just advisory,
Yeah.
Yep,
Yep.
I understand.
all right? Good
And
luck to both
And I'll
of you.
make
luck.
one more
Thank you.
comment on the record here, and I'll of course talk with the applicants afterwards. Because we have so much time between the next Plan Commission meeting, which is July 13th, we have a cancellation in June. There is an opportunity where you can present an alternative based on these feedbacks that you got tonight as well. So it's probably a good idea to come with two sets of plans, your original and then something that kind of addresses what everyone thinks.
Okay, to that meeting,
Pardon?
to that meeting.
Correct.
On July.
And I'll work with you guys on the timeline, but we have a little bit of time because that cancellation.
All right.
Good luck.
All right.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, guys. Take care.
Okay. On to the next thing, public comments. Are there any members of the public or audience that wish to speak at the meeting tonight? That's okay.
Hi, I'm Annie Acker, 833 South Lincoln. I have a 1939 Tudor with a Zook addition. We have lovingly updated this home over the last 5 years when we purchased it, added air conditioning, updated the sewer line, all that fun stuff, updated the kitchen. The last thing we have to do is solve for our garage. It's currently a single detached dilapidated structure. And I've been closely following the Historic Overlay Committee as I feel like we are the young family that is anxious to update our home so we can stay forever. And it's this garage that has been, time and time again, we have been running into roadblocks with just different issues. Either keeping it where it's currently at due to having to keep one wall intact, to keep our, forgive me for the words, setback grandfathered. We've even gone as far as to try to approach our neighbors to purchase additional feet from them, and they aren't willing to sell. So I've been closely following the Historic Overlay. I had the pleasure of speaking with Bethany, and we were so excited about this, and then we find out now that detached structures are not currently being looked at as part of the overlay committee. I don't know if that's the right terminology, sorry. So I guess I'd just like to propose that detached structures get considered for this. Ideally, we'd like to do our project before winter, now with the newborn, and I don't know if I can do another Chicago winter with our detached, and it's actually not even function. Our two cars have to sit out in the driveway, which I know the village doesn't like that, with having cars parked out front. And, what we would do is definitely better than what the neighbors are currently looking at. So I just wanted to propose that I was disappointed to find out that detached structures are not being considered.
Thank you.
So Ann,
you.
I think I met with you a few years
Yes,
ago
Jim,
regarding this,
yes,
right? You had
yes.
plans that were drawn by Dennis Parsons, is that
Yes,
correct?
so we have everything ready to go, and
Right.
we were just waiting for the time to be right, because we were hoping, because to put a two-car garage, because why would you go the trouble of building a single-car garage? Because where the current structure is, could only ever support a single car, because you would hit the back of the house. But if we moved it to the opposite corner, if we had some variances, we could fit a two-car there. But we didn't want to wait and approach our neighbors until we knew what our,
Right.
variances were going to be. And we didn't want to have to spend all this money on additional frontage then just to have the village maybe have these setbacks relaxed, given the,
Right.
attention on preserving older homes. So that's just where we were kind of waiting for the time to be right. And I feel like this is finally now the right time. We really want to do something. We want to build something. But I couldn't even get contractors to give us a bid on keeping that one wall intact to get it, because no one wants to touch this thing because it's so dilapidated.
The garage is currently along the north property line.
Correct.
Are you talking about relocating a garage to the south side?
Yes.
And would you still come in on the north and have a driveway?
No, we'd like to have that all be green space.
Okay.
And have a single driveway on the opposite end of the south property line that would curve back to
Can you remind
maybe a
me
garage and a half.
how far the house is from the south property line to the house?
You know
Bethany,
what?
do you remember?
I don't have the,
Remember off the top of
and,
my head.
and we have such an I think non-conforming is the right word,
Yes.
lot size, which, again, we're the oldest house on the block, so I think that was no fault of ours that our lot got sliced and diced really little. So we have such a odd-shaped lot and we have a lot of things going against us, and we really want to keep this house, and but we don't even put anything in this current garage. I don't even let the kids go in there to get their bikes out because it's so unsafe. So we're just getting to the point with storage, and I don't think our neighbors like looking at our cars either. You know what I mean? It's just, it's getting to the point where we can't take it anymore.
Well,
So-
I know as part of our deliberations with the Historic Overlay District, we didn't specifically talk about detached structures, and Bethany, I think you and Rob reached out to me a couple of weeks ago on this. But we are giving out, or we are waiving essentially floor area ratio, which will
Okay.
help in cases like this.
Okay.
So that does apply.
Okay?
That'll all be kind of reviewed. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bethany?
Yep.
Always interrupt me if I'm off. I remember there was also an issue with, because of the size of the lot being
Right.
the way it is, you only had like 35 feet from the back property line to the house. And then, at least on the north side, I can't remember the south side.
Right.
Even if you took a two-car garage and put it in the back, let's say 2 feet from the side yard, 2 feet from the rear, a 20-foot deep garage was still only going to be like 12 feet from the house and overlapping the house by a good 12 feet.
Right.
So you'd have like a door there you really couldn't pull a car into.
So that's where we could fully use one stall, and then we would still build it as a two-car, just to have storage for kids' bikes
Oh,
and strollers and everything else,
Right.
but really only use the one.
Right.
Because as Dennis was saying, it was just to go through the trouble of building a one-car garage. I mean, you might as well just
Yeah.
get two, even though it's not
Right.
functioning for two cars.
And is there a problem getting us in the rear 20%?
So that was the main issue when we looked at this specific case. So you were right that there was a challenging issue of having that turning radius actually serve both garage doors
Right.
if she was going to rebuild it on the southern part of the lot. But the real issue is that because of the narrow depth of the lot, because it is compared to some of the other lots on the block, it's not as long as everyone else. So she couldn't get that standard garage width
Right.
into the 20% to get that minimum setback.
Right, I believe one of the things I had in the email back, or as part of the conversation, was rear 20%, but with a minimum or suggestion for future text amendment.
Right.
That just says, well, if you're 2 feet from the rear, we'll give you 22 feet or whatever it was.
Right.
And not contain you to the rear 20% if you don't have 20%.
Yeah. And so this goes into one of our future, I'll just put my 2 cents in here, our future old business items that we're going to talk about coming up is we are hoping to have our public hearing for the Historic Overlay District scheduled for, I believe, August 13th for that Plan Commission meeting, where something like this could easily be brought up because I did speak with Annie over the phone quite a bit of time. I did forward an email over to Jim and a couple of other members on this. And this might be a very strange case that does warrant a variation because it is so minute and specific to her individual circumstances and hardship potentially. But it did bring up a good question of should, when we bring this to a public hearing, think about detached garages. And is that something where we're really encouraging with some of this zoning relief, we would be encouraging zoning relief to just do additions versus should we want to help encourage people to rebuild it in a detached garage like this or another accessory
Because it gets to be a
structure?
safety issue too, with this 1930s structure that, and the previous owners had added on that I don't even know if that, I mean, and it's an eyesore, so, to that garage, so the whole, I mean, we would be doing the village a favor, I think, just starting over with this piece. And again, the plans would be approved, they're tasteful, keeping with the, look of a Zook home. But I was also just wondering, would it ever be, just since I have such a one-off situation with my lot size, does the village ever give a relief to putting the structure right against, because our neighbors directly behind us, they have a row of evergreens, they can't even see the structure, putting it right against the property line, and then on that structure to the south, because that's all just weeds on my neighbor's side, they really wouldn't, if we put the structure right against the property line, like, could we get the 2 feet, relief on the rear and side?
Yeah, that's
Does
up
that-
to zoning board of appeals.
Yep.
It's
Okay,
their
okay.
judgment
Yep.
call based on those factors.
Okay, so that's where I guess I'm looking for guidance and just next steps. We want to do this right, we want to make everybody happy, and I'm getting to the point where I guess I just I get excited about it, and then we're like, well, not yet. So and this is through no fault of anybody's, I'm just excited that now there's actually enticing people to want to preserve these homes, especially for the young families. So I guess
Well-
I'm just at a loss of what to do now.
And this is not the first detached garage conversation we've had. I mean, think of the Renan's house on
Yes.
Sixth. I mean, that was very complicated and went to zoning board of appeals. So we need to,
In that case, it was a difficult decision for the zoning board because of the neighbor issues there.
yeah.
Right.
And if you've got a neighbor here with the arborvitae's in the way, the evergreens, weeds, if the neighbors don't object, it makes the zoning board of appeals job a lot easier.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm confident, because I think, I know my neighbors to the south don't want to part with any land, but I think they would be fine with And again, it's nicer than what they're looking at now. And then my neighbors to the north would be thrilled, so.
I don't want to give you any false hope. It is the zoning board of appeals.
Yes, I know, but I'm just,
I mean, is
and
that something?
I'm perfectly aware that that's gonna be a different issue, but I guess at this point, I just would like to, hopefully there's, hope for any, you know, just with the different things that were discussed with the Historic Overlay Committee that they could apply to my situation. And then too, because again, I would like to have something done before winter. If I were to go ahead and get approvals and do everything, and then in a year, it's decided that detached structures could now apply to this, could I get on the list retro? Like, do you see what I'm saying, and be considered?
That's a real administrative issue.
Right, I don't
I
know.
think you have, what, 6
And
months?
I don't want to put you on the spot, I'm just thinking out loud, and
Yeah.
this is what keeps me up at night. So,
Sure.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of conversations here of, like we talked about, we still have a long process to go through
Right.
to establish, and hopefully the board is going to establish this historic overlay district.
Right,
This is a great conversation, I think, for a public hearing, and something totally, in my opinion, worth looking at. And then after, if that historic overlay district would be established, then there's a list of actually looking at which properties would be included.
Right.
Obviously, I believe that people in this community would love a Zook house or a house that's been kind of altered by Zook to be on that list. So we've kind of talked
Right.
about that, but it's still a while off.
right.
So, you know, I'm happy to talk with you further about that variation of process again, because I do think you might be a good candidate for
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Just
Great.
because of the strangeness as well of your,
I know, and I don't want to waste anybody's time, and I thought you have more important things, but I just thought,
No.
I'm sure I'm not the only one with this, you know, consideration, I guess, so.
Bethany, what constitutes detached structure? Like, what if you say attach it to the house like, with like a trellis or a
Right.
walkway, does that make that garage detached or attached?
attached. We've had a couple of cases here where we've had the breezeways with some of the new construction, and we've looked at those as attached from my
Okay.
memory.
So even like with a trellis that's just wood beams across the top, and that would be considered attached then to the garage and attached to the house, so it's not a detached
They
structure.
are connected at that point.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
So,
believe
there
so.
you go.
I believe that's how it's been
So
interpreted in the
There is a
past.
house, I believe the Robinsons still live there, on the southeast corner of Hickory and Monroe, where they had a detached garage. You can see there's a little office space above it. They got a big window on the detached. And you have to drive into a motor court under a trellised area. And if you take a close look, that trellis doesn't touch the house and doesn't touch the
Right.
detached garage by like an inch.
Wow, okay, this is
It's
interesting,
pretty close.
because I, honestly, and this is
cover in
just,
the winter when you're walking to your garage.
yes, and just based off of my calculations, I think from my rear door to this new structure, it would be, what, is it 3 feet? So it's not like, it could be, it could definitely be slower. Okay, so what should my next steps be at this point, Bethany? I don't.
I think the next steps is we should definitely sit down and meet.
Okay.
And go over some of the plans, because what we had done with your specific cases, we had reached out to see if there was gonna be any movement with the historic
Okay.
overlay district and
Okay.
that discussion, which is still, like I said, not coming
Okay.
until August. However, I think it's worthwhile for us to talk about the variation process one more
Okay.
time, because even though that process can take time, it still might be more timely than this process for establishing the
Okay.
historic overlay.
Okay,
And then we can look at some options. We did look at an attached option for you as well.
Okay,
And I
great.
don't think it even worked because of your strange situation.
okay.
So
Well, I so appreciate, because I know you've had a million things going on, so the fact that you have been able to look at my case since we last spoke, I really appreciate it.
we did, and Tim did an analysis, so,
Okay.
well, like a new analysis
Okay.
versus the ones from the former
Okay.
that you had in your emails, so.
Great, well, I'll touch base with you after the meeting,
Yes.
but thank you to the committee.
Thank
for-
you.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you.
Let me
thank you.
offer two other thoughts.
Sure.
One of them is, so I was on the ZBA for a very long time, and the primary criterion is usually hardship.
Okay,
So I'm not advocating for that, but that's usually where appeals either lived or died.
okay,
It is not, the ZBA, at least in my time, did not believe that it was a hardship to have a one-car garage in Hinsdale. That case was often made by people saying, well, I have 4 cars, but I have a one-car garage. However, given the
The lot depth.
lot, right, I think that you could make the case that you need to make this switch. I would not propose that you go to the lot line. I can't imagine the ZBA would approve anything on the lot line.
Okay,
So I think at best, maybe what you're asking is, the current non-conforming detached garage has a 2-foot, it sounds like, setback. Could you replicate? Because obviously you understand that as soon as this one comes down, then that grandfathered clause goes away.
right.
Right.
But that's where I couldn't get a contractor to
That's-
touch that.
Yeah, I
existing.
understand. So that might be, given the historical context and the peculiarities of this particular lot,
Great,
perhaps you could maintain the existing nonconformity, albeit in a new location,
okay,
whether it's 1 or 1.5 or 2.
Okay.
That I can't speak to, but
Okay.
I think that the hardship criterion is the thing to be most
okay,
cognizant of,
Okay.
sort of front of mind, and consider going before the ZBA. Because I agree, this is going to take, I mean, we've made a lot of progress, but this is going to take a while.
Yeah.
okay.
Have
Well, I
you been-
appreciate your honesty. so.
Have you been to the
It's a
Historical
zoning
Society?
hardship.
That's,
Sorry?
yeah.
Have you
Right,
been to the
right.
Historical
Some people
Society?
take that the wrong way.
No.
in that process.
So there's historic photos of your house.
Oh, yes, sorry,
Yeah, okay,
I
okay.
have seen those. I didn't know physically, I haven't been in there.
Okay,
so.
but you've seen what?
I have
yeah,
seen them,
Good,
so.
good.
Thank you, yeah, we
Thank
love our
you.
home and we want to stay there, so we just have to solve for this.
Yeah,
so.
Thank
so
you.
obviously, we're all in favor of that.
Yep,
But Jim is right, and when you have that conversation, it's important to remember that it is about zoning,
yep,
right? So,
yep.
okay.
Okay, great, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Good luck.
you.
Thanks.
Right, moving on to new business. Is there any new business? Bethany?
Okay, we have some old business, if there's no other news business.
Okay.
So we kind of talked about the first one, or our amendments, Title 14 status update. So we did get a referral from the village board to bring our entire historic overlay district packet forward to go through this formal process now. I feel like we've been talking about this for about a year at this point, so now we've finally gotten the approval to move it forward, which has been exciting. We are going to be bringing this to the July, I should know my dates a little bit better here. But we're going to be bringing this to the next Plan Commission meeting, which is on July 12th. July 13th, for scheduling the public hearing. So there won't be discussion, but we'll have the packet out at that point. And then August 10th is when we're going to have the public hearing. So the biggest thing is that if any of our Historic Preservation Commission members want to come and speak as a commissioner, we do probably, and there's more than a couple of you, we need to notice for it. So let me know if you're interested. You can always come on behalf of as a resident as well. But if you are going to be attending, we just want to know so we notice correctly. And then this is a great item for us to maybe discuss at that meeting of, we really only talked about building additions, but is there some merit for looking at detached garages? Even if that one case isn't, the only example, it was something that just came up recently that we've kind of been looking at several other items. So, any questions on that so far?
So that would be for the August meeting.
August 10th.
Okay. Then the Village of Hinsdale 150th anniversary.
We had a kickoff meeting on, and I should know this date as well, on, I think, what day was that? That was May 18th. We had our kickoff meeting. And so we started discussing kind of some of the, activities that we want to do. We had, I think, we had 30 or almost 40 people at that meeting, maybe about 30 of different community members. We talked about some of the events, ideas for that. Some of the ones that the village is looking at sponsoring is putting the railing back onto the roof. So we did get a quote for that already, to kind of test out and see what it would be. One of the things that we've talked, obviously this is a landmark building, so any changes would have to come to the HPC for review if we were going to be, changing that on the roof. But we did talk about, instead of having a wood railing, maybe looking at something that's more durable, because the building maintenance people have said we've actually had to replace it several times. So we're getting some preliminary quotes on that just to feel that out. The other item that we're talking about is some renovations to our front lawn. It will be called Presidential Plaza. is what they're kind of calling it right now. So more details on that. And then possibly looking at some improvements to Burlington Park across the street. There was some talks years ago about like a band shell or a stage or something that might be a gazebo that's pretty in character with this building, but also we wouldn't have to do like the Uniquely Thursday stage every summer. So, and we could use it for other things. So there's discussion like that. And then some signage, we talked about signage. So we did start looking into the tollway sign that I know was
Okay.
brought up. And I did find on the tollway's website how to do it. I just don't know the next steps to that. So we are looking into all these things that were brought up, and we're really excited. And a year is going to come by really quickly.
What is the tollway sign?
Well, the thing I've been bringing up at every meeting, that we should have a historic Hinsdale sign on 294,
294.
just like LaGrange does. Yeah.
Got it. I agree. Good idea.
Bethany, may I quickly comment on two of those things? So we talked in, it wasn't here, I'm forgetting the context, but in terms of the centennial for this building, of restoring Chippendale railing, that, you know, it would not be an addition, right? It would be a restoration. The pins are still up there.
But do you know if I think the actual railing is gone, though.
The actual railing is gone because
Okay.
it rotted out, and the village at that time, which was around the time I was on the board, did not have the funds, it felt, to restore that.
Yeah.
And I know that Kathleen had some conversation with at least some members of the village, current village board. So that strikes me as something that this committee would probably almost certainly be in favor of, because we would actually be returning it to the way it was until relatively recently.
Yep.
As for the front lawn, we also discussed that, and I think it's near Chris Bruton's desk. There is the actual landscape drawing for this building. So I guess I would only ask, because I'm not involved in this, that maybe you or other people, unless I did get involved, if it's 30 or 40 people, maybe it's just open to the public, I don't know. But reviewing plans for how to treat the front lawn, take that historical context into consideration, because one of the things that had been proposed when we did the wall in Burlington Park, which originally had been a WPA project in the 30s, and that had to be removed, and we went with the flagstone one as there now, but there was a discussion of having a walkway that went straight down the center of this lawn.
Yep.
And that got nixed for that very reason, was because it was not in keeping with the historical plan that we currently have of
Yep.
the arching sidewalks. So I guess that's all by way of saying that some of this has been considered before and got rejected for historical reasons. And I guess I would just hope that any discussion about what might happen to the front lawn of the memorial building would consider that, rather than a lot of momentum coming forward for a plan that would not be historically accurate, that at least this commissioner would vote very quickly to reject.
Okay.
So,
I will tell you what was really interesting, and I think it is the photo in Chris Bruton's office, is there is an original photo or an original drawing that does show stairs going down. And then we did find one where there is actually no street between, and it just blends right into Burlington Park.
right.
So, you know, we could also just take out the whole street if you wanted, but
That
to go
came-
back to whatever the original vision was.
That came up very briefly, to take out this block of Chicago Avenue, and that was rejected by the fire department and a
imagine.
whole lot of other people, just having to detour for the farmer's market creates enough issues.
Right.
So that was not pursued.
No, but these meetings are open to the public as well, so I'm happy to share that link. We do have some commissioners that will be attending those meetings. They're held via Zoom, which is very nice and convenient. But yes, we're very mindful of that. We're hoping there was some discussion that we're going to get some of this work done pro bono as well. And we have an interested, well-known landscape architect that's looking to hopefully provide some services, but we're still in kind of the preliminary phases. So there's just a lot of ideas being thrown out now. But I'll be sure to keep you guys in the loop, because it's my understanding that this building is landmarked, but we haven't really done site changes as part of the landmarking process.
Yeah.
So, but it is something to bring forward, I think, as a, maybe a discussion item as well when we move down the road.
10 seconds, one of the 1920s proposals was to move the railroad tracks below grade and deck over the Burlington Northern
Really?
tracks. Yeah,
How much was that gonna cost?
and that's why it didn't happen. And that was during the good years.
Yeah.
Wow, that would have been interesting if that happened.
Okay, so last item, Robbins Park Historic District Gateway signs. If you want to give us a quick update on that.
Yes. All right.
I'd like Sarah to be able to comment. And
Yes. So
before you
I
have
don't know
to
if
take off
everyone
here.
was able to take a look at this. I don't want to go into it too much here because I know we're running out of time before Sarah needs to leave. But this is basically the culmination of me going out to a couple locations on the gateway boundaries with public services to kind of just look at what are our options for future signage. We would like to put together at some point a bid for this. I don't know with some of the supply chain issues and with prices going up, how much we're actually going to be able to afford for this year. So like we talked about before, we might need to break it up into several years. However, we need to start thinking about the concept because if we put a bid out there, we kind of just don't want a sign company to run the gamut and do whatever they want. We should try to give them some parameters about what we're thinking and feeling. So this is the beginning stages of a document to kind of get us thinking about it and discuss it. So we went and looked at 5 different sites. Oh, and I've got another update because this is just remind me. Public Services did install some of our street sign toppers along the parade route. So take a look. They obviously have been really busy doing the outdoor dining with our downtown and some of the parking changes in our downtown, but they did get some of the signs up and I think they look good. We're gonna obviously continue to progress. So hopefully that's good news. But these are the 5 locations that we initially looked at. We're obviously open to other suggestions, but these were the 4 corners as well as that First Street location that I think we talked about before. And then some things to just keep in mind as we keep going through, and I won't go into every single specific detail, but there's a lot of weird underground utilities that could cause conflicts, and then there's surprisingly, which I was, surprised about, there's a lot of areas where there's really narrow right-of-way to actually fit a sign. So as we looked at these more and more, it was a bit of a challenge. So the first one we looked at was that vacant lot at Garfield and Chicago. This has a very narrow area as well, but we thought this could be possibly something for a freestanding sign. In your packet, number 2 was incorrectly shown on the little map. This was supposed to be at it's on the corner of County Line and Chicago Avenue. This one also is very a deceiving location because we think we have more grass out there than we do, but we have a little bit more of a narrow area. The north side of Chicago has some conflicts like a utility pole, a stop sign, there's a fire hydrant, there's a giant tree. So we were thinking hopefully maybe we do something a little bit closer to the county line area. But once again, we'd have to get Julie to go out there and kind of mark and do a survey for where some of these utilities actually are, but we do know that there's a lot of utilities in this area. Before I move on to the next slide, what are the thoughts about these 2 locations? Or are there any?
I like the 2 locations. They're on the corners
Okay,
of the district. And actually, to me, it makes sense that the County Line and Chicago Avenue one would actually be on that southwest
you'd be
corner.
driving
Because
into it.
really, I mean, yes, Highland Station is historic. There are a true handful of houses on the north side
Yep.
of Chicago. It almost gives the wrong impression as to what is the historic district if it were
Yep.
on the north. But
I think that's the right corner.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it's away from the stop sign, the light pole, and the fire hydrant over there.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd see it.
Right.
I think as people approach this corner, that's the place for that sign.
And once again, once we put something out to bid, we will of course have detailed plans come back later, right? We're gonna have a longer process of reviewing everything. These are just the conceptual locations and spots, so if someone really thought these were bad, or there was really a concern, now's the time to make sure we tweak the general idea. Okay, so the third area was on, further down on County Line in 8th Street, so that kind of south corner. This area, we also surprisingly had a lot of conflicts here. There is a bicycle sign currently there that no one really knows why or how or where it goes. But the good news is we can always relocate some of these signs. So I think there's a good possibility of looking at relocating that existing bicycle sign there. We do have a hydrant and we do have some other conflicts. But hopefully we would be able to put it either on County Line or, like we just discussed, maybe we could relocate it to 8th Street, but like I said, there is a hydrant there. We couldn't, it's too small right at that exact intersection to put anything. So we thought hopefully kind of maybe orienting it towards, and maybe the design thinks about that, of someone turning into 8th Street from County Line. Any thoughts on that one? You'll see the bicycle sign now as soon as you drive by. Okay, so, and then number 4, this one was also interesting. We have a little bit more room right at the intersection here, but there is an existing street sign. So we did talk with Public Services, and they have no issue just moving it to the other side of the street. So the actual street signs with the names are relocated. And then right at that corner, we do have enough room, they think, to put a little freestanding sign.
It would be ideal.
And just to remind everyone, Garfield is currently under construction, so this intersection could look a little different down the road, but probably not by much. But relocating a street sign as part of this won't be a big deal.
As a part of this process, are the homeowners just notified ahead of time?
We probably will end up doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just know that I've got some random stuff in my parkway that I would
Yeah.
like to have talked about
Yeah.
before they went in, so.
Of course.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think because it's a residential area, almost everyone would probably agree these are not going to be illuminated. But, you know, someone might want to know, why is that sign being installed right in front of my house?
Right.
So, yeah, I would assume there's going to be, once we have actual plans and have decided on things, that we'll have some public outreach. Okay, now this was actually the most challenging location. So I think in past meetings, we had talked about potentially that a lot of people feel that this location on Garfield and First, we're kind of at an intersection of our downtown, but also, you know, this is kind of leading into Robbins. So, but there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of sign clutter. There's a lot of poles. There's everything. So what we were thinking at this location is having down the road, once we figure out a design, the colors, the signage, doing some sort of matching branding here, but it would be kind of mounted on our light poles. So I wanted everyone's feedback about that. We can obviously, we've got a lot already going on some of these light poles, but these can easily be modified to be kind of more towards the Robbins Park district. Because we just don't really have rooms for any sort of, unless we kind of really start going into the district, but it might look a little outplaced. So what is everyone's thoughts on that?
I don't like the strapping. The straps. Straps.
Right.
Yeah, those straps would need to be, the signage would need to be fastened slightly different, so, because you got a lot of suspenders on this thing. So it might be a way.
Yep, so I talked with Public Services, and part of that would be re-looking and maybe regrouping or relocating some of those signs.
All right, that's helpful.
Yep.
Okay.
Bethany, I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking all of a sudden compared to the first part of the meeting, but appreciating the challenge of this spot, I have to say this is not, this would not be my first choice
Okay,
for this particular location. Clearly the site presents some challenges, and we have a lot of signs there. It does strike me that potentially we could keep the same type of sign that you're proposing for the other 4 corners, but perhaps step it back to the lot line for the dentist office there. You know, it is the case that neither of these buildings is historic. on the corner, particularly the one on the north.
Right.
So, and when you go behind the dentist's office, you know, that's one of the two parsonages for Grace Church. That particular one is not historic either. That building is 15 years old. And once you get to the church and the Hallmark House beyond it, then you're deep into historical significance, the Hallmark House in particular. But I guess I do wonder if maybe the same type of signage could be maintained, but perhaps it is set in one lot, somewhere before the church. But I guess I like the idea of consistency.
And one of the things, I know this is really hard to see, and I don't have an aerial image, but I know you guys are more familiar. That's something that is worthwhile if, you know, if a location like this is not ideal because of the historic context, because of the buildings, we could also maybe look at some mimicking signage in some of our, you know, we do have some of the triangular pieces and the curvilinear roads on the inside of the district. So there might be some ways that we can incorporate throughout the district too. I didn't put any of that in here, but these were the gateway entry signs. So we could see if we can move something in, like you said, a block or two, at least on First Street, so we can have something. We could also look at First Street and County Line as well, because I think that was where there was some other signage as well that we could see if there's a better fit.
Sarah, did you have anything you wanted to add? Because I know you've got to leave in a couple minutes. Just want to make sure you had an opportunity to.
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Sorry about that.
So I'm wondering if we need anything at this intersection, if this is what it's going to look like with all these other signs and everything going on. Are we just good with the four corners at that point?
That's an interesting question.
Because I'm looking at this same photo, and if we move it back, let's say a lot, now we're in the trees, right? It's not really serving the purpose at this, what's supposed to be this
Yeah, that-
main intersection of town,
Yeah.
right? Are we just going to lose it, and then with everything else?
Yeah, well, we might. I guess I was assuming, since you made a proposal to have something at First and Garfield, because First Street does feel very much like an entrance to the district. To your point, even with County Line and First, as opposed to Chicago Avenue, right? Most people on Chicago Avenue are
Flying.
right?
Yeah, right.
And the the Chicago and Garfield spot across from Corner Bakery, you know, as you know, is currently an empty lot, but someday it probably won't be empty, and whatever will be there will not be historic.
Good point.
So you raised an interesting question, Jim. I almost wonder, I don't know. It doesn't bother me as much to maybe set it back in a little bit. Maybe one might consider doing that even for the location that is at the, what I'm gonna call the Corner Bakery corner. And you move it to, what's that first block? Blaine?
So, and Blaine is a beautiful
Blaine is, right, a beautifully
beautiful
historic street.
streetscape.
What if the sign were at Blaine and Chicago,
Because that's. I think
southwest corner of Blaine and
Yeah.
Chicago?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Historic district too.
Yeah. If we did that, maybe the sign, maybe it'd make more sense
Then to push the other ones
to
back.
push, if there is one on First Street, to push it in a little bit. I mean, I know that's not technically the border, but
Maybe start the signage where the actual historic structures are,
yeah.
back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for the two on 8th Street, you know, happily, those two corners are occupied by historic homes. At least for now.
Right.
So maybe it's worth considering pushing it back just enough so that someone looks at it and say, oh, that makes sense, or that's kind of neat,
Yeah.
or I get it. But both are really busy. This northwest corner of the district is a really busy area, whether you're at First or you're at Chicago on Garfield, it's just really busy. And
Yep.
I wonder if it just kind of gets lost
That's what I'm thinking.
right in visual
So I'm
clutter.
looking at this picture
Yeah.
going, and then looking at the little images down below.
Yeah, if you drive
gonna see
by,
this?
you're not, it's too
Yeah.
much.
And there's 7 things, just on this one sign, on this one pole.
Well, and you're also butting up against the signs that are the historic downtown signs, so then you've got like lots going on.
That's true, and that one would be right across from the corner
Yes.
bakery sign.
Yeah.
I should stop calling it that, but yeah. So I don't, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe,
No,
maybe Blaine on Chicago Avenue.
Yep.
And maybe kind of the Blaine-ish intersection on First Street is where they
Or
should
do we
go.
need that fifth one? Because if we're talking, I mean, once we get the pricing, maybe there's something else that we need to, especially if we're starting to talk about tollway signage or whatever, that maybe we just need the four corners at this point.
Well, there would be a sign topper for the street sign at Blaine and First, right?
Correct.
Kind of by Redeemer
Yeah.
Lutheran and Grace Church right there, anyway?
There should be a sign topper at every intersection eventually,
Yeah.
so.
I almost drove into a tree. I was so excited when I saw one. I saw the one at First and Park, and I yelled out, "Oh my God!" Anyway,
It wouldn't have been fair if I told you guys first. I wanted everyone to just see them in the wild.
it made my day.
And the other thing I'll mention is, we're hopefully going to have a company put together a real plan for us, right? And with a real branded theme, right? So it's going to match our, street sign toppers. It's going to be something that everyone likes. They're going to bring some ideas to us. It can also evolve from there, right? And even if they put a plan together and we can't afford and we didn't budget for all of it at once, at least we have that plan moving forward. So we don't need to decide on everything now, but I think it's good feedback to say maybe everyone's not so happy with the location 5. It sounds like there's sign clutter. We'll go back and take a look at some alternate locations.
Are we allowed to roll over our budget from one year to the next? I mean, because we have a modest budget, can we accrue for 2 years to help pay for this?
What usually will happen is there isn't a rollover, but we could hopefully re-budget for future years. Because we are coming towards middle of the year, we have a
Right.
limited time frame.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hopefully, we can do something by this year, start the bidding process. And if not, we'll put it in for next year. But we can always re-budget every year or reallocate funding.
Okay.
So, yeah. And especially if we work with if there's a selected contractor through this bid process and they put a plan together, they can give us hopefully those cost estimates for future years if we know what we can afford with the first budget, right? So
Yeah.
we'll know what to budget for
Right.
future years. too.
Right, yeah.
Makes it easier.
Would you all groan if I bring up the thought that if we do these beautiful new signs, that our historic downtown signs are a little different looking? And is that complicated? I mean,
You don't want them to look the same?
I would probably rather have them look the same than look the way they do.
For
mean,
the
I think-
downtown area?
Yeah, I think it's a little messy. I don't know.
See, I was wondering, I was gonna bring it up for discussion, if we really got into the signs themselves, do you try to match the theme of kind of what we have going on for the downtown area? Or do you want this to look different and stand out as being something different, so it doesn't blend in with every other sign? Because you can make a really good argument either way.
Yeah, I don't think I like the black. And I don't know what I think about the historic downtown signs,
The current
But-
ones.
the current ones.
Right.
But I do think that there's definitely conversation. Do we want both areas to be significantly different signage? Or do we want to send a consistent message that we have, I mean, you put the historic downtown signs as well as the Robbins Park signs, you have a nice corner, we've got a nice big piece of our village that it has historic designation signage. And then I'm always simple and consistent. And I think it hurts my eyes to have two different types of signs designating two different historic districts.
Okay, I can agree with that. I think
mean,
it's
it's
something we
gonna-
should really discuss
'Cause-
when we have
and
everybody
I-
here and.
Wonder, I mean, I should know off the top of my head, but I don't, how many historic downtown signs do we have and where are they located? I think that would be helpful on the big plan to see where those are as well.
Okay, yeah, I'll put that for the next time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because there's a couple of different ones, like you can see, there's like, in Burlington Park, we've got the you know, banner signs that constantly are changed out. And then we have a couple, we have, at least I know 4, I believe, on the light poles, that say the National Register Historic District, so.
And then
Right.
there's that one freestanding one on North Garfield
Correct.
that had the peeling decal.
And
The
then,
wayfinding ones, which have been fixed out now, right?
Were they fixed? I honestly don't
I
know.
noticed
Yeah.
recently. it
You
was-
didn't jump for joy, I guess, when you were driving for that one. but-
Maybe because that's been there for a
and then
while.
would there ever be a consideration to put a sign on Ogden and
Right.
York
Pointing the way.
pointing the way? Like you are entering,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's where the traffic's coming, so if somebody's looking for a cute little historic downtown, turn
Well,
left.
if you're gonna put something on 294,
You gotta
you
guide
gotta
them
get
here.
them the rest of the way.
That's right.
All right.
What about if they turn left on county line from, as they cross over the highway illegally?
Get that too, huh?
I'm kidding. No. I seen that like, why don't you go to the light and make a left? Give me a break.
Well, for the record, I love Bill's idea of moving this sign from Garfield and Chicago over to Blaine.
okay,
When
that's
when you
good.
consider
Yeah.
what's, is that Shannon's?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. When you consider that something's gonna get built there eventually, and that's gonna be the background to the sign, and it's gonna be a brand-new building, to have it over on Blaine, I think is a terrific idea.
That's good feedback.
And I think we really have to put some thought into First and Garfield. I still think it might be a good location if it's in the right location and it's done properly.
Yep.
Because of where it is in relation to downtown. And if we can take Shannon's other good idea of making it all kind of, you know, work together.
Yeah.
Might work out. I mean, I tried sketching on here. It's about the only location you've got.
Yeah.
Because there's no stop signs here around the corner.
Right.
And we can move that truck sign, right? There's no trees there. That's the other problem with going back in a lot. You get into the big trees.
Right.
And you might miss it. I
You
kind of
might
just
miss it, yeah.
very rough.
Yeah.
It's about the only place I can think of you put that.
Mhm.
So I think a lot to discuss next time.
Yep.
No,
So,
Bethany, this is just blue sky. I mean, could funding for this possibly also come through the 150th?
that is also a possibility. And ideally, obviously, we'd like some of these up for 150th as
Yes.
well. I mean, that would be wonderfully ideal. Yep.
Which is next year.
Which is next
Yes.
year and very soon.
Might as
It'll
well be
come in no
tomorrow.
time.
Yeah.
But yes, as one of the things that we've been discussing in the 150th that I know Heather with our Parks and Recreation Department has been putting together is a sponsorship booklet for some of like the programs that we just talked about earlier. So these are something maybe that we could even put in. The problem is people usually want to see a design to sponsor it, and we aren't there yet.
Yeah.
So. But, so for the next meeting, at least for location-wise, I'll look at those 3 other locations. We'll look at the Blaine location, the other 2 possible locations on First Street. And I'll put a map together that kind of shows the existing downtown signage. And I'll see what I can find out about that wayfinding signage, and what we have for that. Okay, so I know we just kind of talked about some of our existing signs. The next one, just to get people thinking, like I said, no decisions need to be made today, but these are just good things to now think about when you go out to those sites in the next couple months. There's a couple of signs we can kind of take a look at that are what other communities have kind of done for these type. The major one in a residential type setting is these single post signs. So they're obviously not really large in many ways. I mean, they can be differently scaled, but the majority of them are single posts. So you can kind of see some examples here. And then these are actual photos. So I know it's hard to see on some of the TVs, but it is in your packet. So I don't know if there's any here that like, I put some numbers that like stand out to you, that we want to talk about, or we can kind of just go through and talk about them next time. But there's also, just for comparison, what other people have done is the dual post. These are obviously larger, and, you know, there's pluses and minuses to everything. So just want to bring up at least these two are the primary types of signs people have done for these districts.
You know, Bethany, based on the first thing we talked about with the 5 different sites and the photos and where things have to go, we're dealing with some tight areas.
Yep.
And I have a feeling we're gonna have a tough time getting anything more than a single post to work, at least 2 of those locations,
Yep.
so.
I would agree. I
Maybe
would
just my
agree.
opinion that we kind of focus down on that if in the future, but.
Okay. Just wanted to bring it up because there are some really narrow dual posts that can be made.
I think those look a little, they don't look historic.
I agree. I like the single post
Yeah.
aspect of that.
Yeah.
They're used more in park settings, like a dual
Yes,
post,
or the zoo, yes.
Or the
yeah,
zoo.
Yes.
which we don't really want the vibe
No.
of.
Unless we can turn the post into a giant H. Okay, anything else? Frank, you're being awfully quiet.
No, it's been a really, really long day. That's all.
Bill, anything else to add? Something you like?
I like 3 and 11
For the single post?
for a single post. Yeah, just,
I do.
I don't want it to look like Disney World or an office park. And I think some neighbors may be more receptive than others to having another sign in their parkway that they regard as their
Yeah.
yard. But I think Shannon's general approach of, you know, simple, classic, something that could read as historical as opposed to kitschy.
Yep.
I don't like the fact that it's wood, but the one for number 9,
Yeah,
that's green,
yeah,
it almost looks like it's a plaque mounted to a post. Like a framed picture.
yeah.
Right, like it has like a statement associated with it.
And certainly that could be done in metal.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we have to also, though, tie in this, like, if we want everything to look similar, are we redoing our historic downtown signage that has the curly Q bracket? You know, I think that we have to look at the whole
At
package.
the bigger picture, yeah.
I like the one on number 7, the round, kind of glassy look. I don't agree with the pole on the, but somehow maybe that could be a single pole or something. I don't know.
You're on the gateway signage.
Yeah,
that one,
yeah,
yeah.
right. Not sure if it's glass or plexiglass or what, but it does look historical, the font and the design.
Bethany, the other thing that occurs to me, I know I've mentioned this group before in other contexts, but my recollection is that the historic downtown signs were paid for by the EDC, the Economic Development Commission.
That is a possibility. I tried to go back and find the approvals and figure out who knew what. I haven't been able to track down the
Okay.
history yet. You could be correct, though, and I know the wayfinding signs have been, the ones with the arrows.
Okay.
So,
Even if they weren't, I don't see any harm in potentially at the right point in asking if EDC might chip in some funds to help do, particularly if we wrap in
Right.
downtown. Just as another possible
Yep.
pot of cash.
And just, so you know, the signage that we budgeted for this year, we actually did put it in the EDC budget, just because they had done the signage stuff before. So these signs are budgeted for in that EDC fund as of right now.
Oh, okay,
So,
great. You're a step ahead of us.
Anything else, folks? Going once? Going twice?
I move to
May I
adjourn.
have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move to adjourn.
Second.